This is my final story. I have come to the conclusion that my words have real consequences outside of the pages they were written on. It all started a few weeks ago. I was feeling creative and wrote a short story about a young man who meets a gruesome end to a knife-wielding maniac. His name was Rupert McManus. The story was a hit on the message boards. People enjoyed the blood and scare, and I was happy, for a moment. 2 days later I was watching the news when the anchor gave a grim report. An elderly man named Rupert McManus had been stabbed by a home intruder who was high on meth. I was shocked. I literally had to recheck my story to make sure the names were the same. I felt terrible but calmed myself down with the promise that this was the world's biggest coincidence. Later that night I laid in bed trying to not think about Rupert. Putting my mind on other things, I began to think of another story. My second story was about a couple. Mary and David Churton. They were on a budget vacation when they find themselves locked in a hotel that is closed up for the winter. As they look for food in a maze of corridors and locked passage, they go mad and begin to eat each other. It ended with the cleaners finding 2 skeletons in the dining room. That might be a bit cheesy, but I never said I was a great writer. I was proud of my story. More than the last. Before going to sleep I posted it on my favorite stories group and fell into a wondrous sleep. The next morning, I got up feeling refreshed and headed off to work without a care. A few days later I was bored and decided to check my social media pages. I try not to do it daily. Whatever I was feeling in the moments before checking my Reddit disappeared so quickly and was replaced with dread. After several positive comments, there it was. Someone commented that I was cruel for making fun of dead children like that. Another comment asked for them to explain. They posted a news link. Mary and David Churton, brother and sister, had just passed due to parental neglect. The coroner had found salmonella to be the cause due to their eating of spoiled food served to them by their father, who had been an untreated schizophrenic. They were 11 and 10. The article said they had died on Thursday morning. I had posted my story on Wednesday evening. What was happening to me? Was I psychic? Was God playing a prank on me? If I was smart, I would have stopped writing from then on and cut off my fingers for good measure. But in all honesty, if I had powers, I needed to abuse it first. Over the next few days, I toyed with ideas of names just to see what would happen. If this power was mine, I should probably use it. I thought. Maybe my landlord who kept not fixing my shower, Max Smitherman. Or my boss who is always making fun of me to impress his secretary, Barry Pedro. I eventually decided while looking at a news site to use the name of a pedophile who had just been found not guilty of molesting a child at the school worked at. Reading the story filled me with such a rage I could feel it pulsing through my fingers. I opened my laptop and began typing. Neville James Cartwright's story was not pretty. It involved torture and him being violated in every way I could think of. As I looked at the Word document, I wondered if I should delete it and walk away. Does the world need more death? With my heart pounding, I clicked on publish. If this power was real, then Neville deserved to feel the brunt of it for what he did. After I clicked send, I waited. Nothing. I clicked refresh on my page a few times and nothing again. Why weren't people commenting? I googled Neville hoping to see that he had been punished. Nothing. In my haste, I wrote another 4 stories, all involving people in the news who had committed heinous crimes. From James Frontman, who beat up an old woman and robbed her, Susan Keith, who glassed a young woman at a bar, Trevor Fleming, shot a family for the mob, and Kylie Woolen, she had just been arrested for murdering the new girlfriend of an ex-lover. I was hasty with their stories, sloppy and with no development. I clicked send one after the other, actively holding these people would die, and to my wonder they did. Then I went to sleep. I woke up to the most beautiful news. In a most bizarre coincidence, all 4 characters of my story were at the courthouse when on one glorious Thursday morning an unnamed terrorist group blew it up in the name of anarchy. Their names were listed on the memorial list on the TV. I paused and looked closer as there were many on the list, and there they were in alphabetical order. I felt euphoric. I was a god practically. I couldn't explain how this blessing worked, but whenever I wrote someone's name down and posted it, they would somehow meet a gruesome end. Even the minor characters I found out with more Googling. I could kill anyone with just the typing of their names and clicking publish. The pen is truly mightier than the sword. Or at least the keyboard. I needed to do more people. High-profile ones. I continued over the next few days to write story after story. Presidents, religious leaders and celebrities were all on the list. I posted a few, but the rest are still backed up on my hard drive, and will never see the light of day. My world came crashing down when it came to pass that the subject of my third story came to his untimely end. Neville James Cartwright's death had taken longer than the rest. I guess it had a lot of moving parts. As I saw the article pop up in my notifications, I was happy for a second. Until I began reading. Neville James Cartwright Jr., son of suspected child molester Neville Cartwright, has been murdered in a suspected revenge attached by sadistic group. I gulped as I read further. It was horrific. Every horrible detail that I had imagined to be enacted on the father had been done to the son. I felt all the power I had felt in the past drain from my body. I had caused a child whose only crime was being a son to a terrible man to go through what no one should. Raped repeatedly, then killed by a horde of maniacal bastards. I sunk into my chair and began to weep. I looked at the computer that had a finished story ready to publish. I picked up the keyboard and smashed the screen. I screamed into a dazed frenzy. When I came to, I was covered in my own blood and on the floor. I showed and went to bed feeling like a sack of shit. Over the last few weeks my words had led to the death of over 150 people that I can count, including the ripple effect of some deaths. I should feel nothing at this point. But I do. I lay in bed with my eyes pointed at the ceiling, and all I can see is all the carnage I have created. This blessing turned out to be a curse so quickly. I wonder if I could write a story to make things better. I grabbed my phone and began typing. I hope this helps. This is my full confession and last story. May I meet the end that I deserve. I hope they're not as bad as I was when I get to hell. But now I sleep.